And we're on. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Short Fiction Side Hustle. This is episode number 15, and we are making our way through Daughter of Regals and Other Tales by Stephen Donaldson. And this month's story is called Mythological Beast. It's a short for Donaldson, 20-page story um, in this collection. And this, from what I read, was written originally in 1977. So it was
Okay.
one of the early ones that he wrote. And so I found that very interesting. And yeah, so I have with me my good friends Vasha, Chris, and Jake. From their respective channels down there. And yeah, let's get into it. What are some just high level thoughts about this nice little tale here?
I can throw something out
Jake,
first, I
throw
guess.
something up there.
I started right, and you're like a paragraph or two in, and it just immediately feels so unsettling. Um, that it's at face value is supposed to sound it's very safe. It's very all these things, right? It's
Yeah.
perfectly safe, perfectly normal, and I'm just like, ooh, this does not feel safe and normal. Um, so just right away, it felt really eerie and dark and creepy, and I had no idea where it was going to go. But that tone right off the bat really hit me.
Nice. That's a good point. Oh, Chris, you say something?
No, well, as a story, it's a strange one because it's hard not to project current day events on the story itself. You know what I mean? It's definitely one of those we often talk about this, and this one feels very science fiction, even though it's about a unicorn, which is a fantasy animal. You know, it has a science fiction sort of twist on it for sure in terms of technology and all the rest of it. So I mean, I was reading it kind of thinking it's sort of prophetic, as an awful lot of those kind of stories can be, but it also kind of generates an awful lot of discussion about other things. And given that we talked about this last night, actually, the fact that when you're reading multiple books that sort of bleed together into one thing, I started The Chrysalids by John Wyndham, and a lot of the same themes are exactly in that story. As they are in this, so it was interesting to read that. In as Donaldson always does, within 20 pages, he manages to get the brain firing and thoughts kind of going in a way that others can't do in the read, and disturbing and unsettling in all of those ways, as Jake rightly said.
Yeah. And Vasha.
Yeah, I thought it was a perfectly safe, perfectly sane story, and well, the the sections with the computer interactions. So I've been recently using more what's the tool? AI tools to help write code and, well, more importantly, debug issues. And then it just like flip flops and sometimes ignores the main thing that's going on. That's what the interaction with the doctor felt like to me. So yeah, it felt like he was writing about when we all talk to LLMs to to get stuff done for ourselves, because this is an advanced world where we've replaced everything with computers, and they're supposed to, be as good as humans, right? No, we haven't waited until they are. um, they suffice, I think, for the job that they're supposed to do, like with the doctor and the director and everything. But they monitor the hell out of you, which, yeah, it, all of that could be said about all the tech we use today. So it's just, in to add to what Jake said about the general discomfort that the story caused, I think for those reasons too, it was a pretty uncomfortable story to read. But yeah, it was nice. I was trying to figure out what it's trying to say, what the story is about. Like, sure, the technology and like being and maybe predicting the future a little bit in a world where everything's replaced by computers. But what does the unicorn part of it signify? I'm curious to hear all your thoughts about that.
Yeah. That's a good question. It's funny because in the prologue of the book itself, Donaldson mentions that this was that the theme of this story was something he feels very strongly about, and so I was thinking about that. As I was reading along here, and it's like like Jake said, with the perfectly safe, perfectly sane, uh, you know, life that Norman, a guy, had. He he has this readout that's saying you're okay, everything's okay, and there was this it just kind of reminded me of that need for reassurance that people have this driving need to be reassured all the time that they're doing the right thing, that they're making the right decision, that they're living the right life. And that was just kind of hammered home as we were going along in this story, that um this need to feel this reassurance all the time uh was displaced into the technology. And it's like you said, Chris, I think it's very prophetic to the need that people have for, likes and stuff on social media
Mhm.
today, that reassuring uh dopamine button or whatever it is that that we have online. I was just like, wow, that's pretty good for 1977. I think it was spot on as far as that is. um and so that was like one theme going through, but there was also this theme, I think, of the loss of ability, the loss of the means of making decisions, and without that constant backup, that constant reassurance. And there's plenty of examples of it in here that I thought was funny in some cases, quite amusing, and but on the surface. But then you think about it, it's like, oh, actually, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I guess to build on what you were saying there a little bit, Jared, I think that's so spot on. And I think something else that I noticed was there's a lot about sort of that flip side of the reassurance. There's a lot about fear. Like
Yeah.
the whole reason they got those bioemitters is because they were trying to get rid of violence, right? And they were like, how do we eliminate violence from the world? Well, let's eliminate fear. Logically, like I can see the thought process, right? But we've all seen this movie before. We've all read this book before. It doesn't turn out well. But so they're trying to do that, and now all of a sudden Norman, which maybe I'm reading way too much into this, but I was like, Norman, normal human, like it's sort of, I don't know, it just kind of felt like he was like a stand-in for like the average person,
Yep.
which maybe I'm reaching, but anyway.
That's good.
I think you're right. I think that's no accident.
Okay. He's like he sees this readout thing on his computer, and then he starts to get scared, and he starts to get scared that he's like, do I actually have free will or not? Can I do whatever I want? Like all those things. And then him turning into the unicorn was like, that unicorn was, and they said it even in the story, it's sort of a symbol of purity and all of these things, like the sort of the lack of fear. And then all the other people are scared of him. So his symbol of purity and not being afraid is then making all of them be afraid. And I just thought that was so interesting. And then the little girl not being afraid of him at the end because she's like him. I loved all of that stuff.
Yeah. It's it's so multi-layered in terms of what it talks about. This idea that we use technology as a way to solve in society. I think that was true in 1977. I think it's still true in this society. Insofar as we have a problem, let's kind of give people a way to control it using technology, and then in doing so, take basically society away. And it kind of talks about things like nanny state and those things. But it's sort of like a combination of your favorite novel, Jared, 1984, George Orwell. Absolutely top tier favorite novel. The Aldous Huxley kind of principle as well, A Brave New World, and all of those ideas about how you control populations and masses, and actually using the symbol of a unicorn, which is basically the symbol of uniqueness and the individuality that this person was turning into as something to be ultimately afraid of, you know, because of his horn and all of that kind of stuff that was going into it. And it's about really othering the fringes of society and that kind of stuff. You know, I just found that kind of exploration as I was reading it really enriched, to say. And it's not always that you can read something that's sort of thematically dense like this and also be thinking at the same time, you know. But this story manages to do that because it's not dense in the ways that we don't recognize what's happening on the page. We can, again, in that sort of prophetic way, we've seen this play out multiple times in the same way that Orwell predicted, and same as Huxley predicted. You know, these things are truisms throughout society, but in this case it's about unicorns and an Apple Watch, basically.
Oh man, yeah, I really like the some of the interactions that he ends up having, and some of the things that Donaldson says in here. Whereas, like for instance, like all the houses are identical, so we have now this cookie cutter society, and we have perfectly sane flow of traffic coming for where I come from. That doesn't exist, and and we have the fact that people needed jobs, not because there was any work that needed to be done at all, just because people needed jobs, and it was like just an thing to keep people occupied in order to placate them and reassure them once again, you know. And that stuff kept coming up, but the best was when he went to the doctor and the receptionist was like, "Oh, what do I do?" Yeah. And he's just like, how about taking my name, you know?
Yeah.
That cracked me up.
I love that too. Yeah. And even at the end, like he realized she couldn't read, right? So he was able to like delete the records or whatever, and get the warning because he was able to see what the doctor actually said, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that was a scarier part of it, the fact that she actually couldn't read, because that right there is like, that's like one of my biggest fears today about, you know, people's interaction with this thing, and taking away literal literary value, you know. And and so when that line came up, and you know, keeping in mind that he wrote this in 1977, that those fears were obviously in society even back then, is pretty wild.
Yeah. And those skills that he's talking about that people have forgotten, those ideas of reading and even research skills, looking things up, like he talked about the encyclopedia hadn't been updated since in such a long time, for instance, or probably in 1977, what you would call higher order skills within life, they were sort of replaced by technology, and the fact that it's not only saying that those were taken away, but even the basic level skills, the things that we attain when we're about to hit double figures in life, they're gone as well, because of this over reliance on, I don't really want to say technology, because more than that, it was about the taking away of fear. It was about controlling the population. You know, it just so happened that it was through technology in this, which is sort of where I flipped about halfway through the story to say this isn't just about technology. It would be reductive, I think, to say that that's exactly what the story is just about, because of kind of how AI is prevalent and computers in our society. But I think it's just a symptom, isn't it, of the misdirection of what they were setting out to do in this idea of quelling fear and stopping violence and all of that kind of stuff. And yet he sets fire to the hospital. Well, they were going to do it as well. They were, I mean, it was sort of beat them to the punch, just kill everybody inside in order to control the population again, you know?
Yeah. And it was, and it's funny because you had those big events like that, like when him, you know, hitting the guy away and
Mhm.
busting through the soldiers or whatever they were, the police people, and running along and stuff like that. But it was some of the quieter moments that really stood out, as poignant as when he asked his wife, "How did our son learn this stuff? Like, who told him that he had to go to school?" And her response, is just like, "Oh, that's just how it's always been. That's just what we do." And it's like that non-answer that you're not. It's one of those questions you're not supposed to ask because it just couldn't compute in her mind. It couldn't register, and she actually and the further he goes, that's when he has to leave the house because the medical team comes to take her away because she can't handle um, what's happening to him, and she tries to like not even see it. She doesn't want to recognize the horn and what's happening to him, and she has a breakdown, and that goes to the power of denial in the name of comfort, safety, and reassurance. Uh, I thought it was pretty good, really good.
That stood out to me a lot too. It's so funny. Chris, you mentioned a lot about this controlling society, and like I barely even thought of that when I was reading the story. Funny enough, I was just thinking so much about, like how people are in the real world. People are so caught up in like, how do I just feel safe? How do I have an easy life? How do
Yeah.
I get by and do these things? And so I was thinking more, through that lens, and like when the wife had the breakdown because she just couldn't face this thing that felt kind of scary and not just being in line and doing the same thing every day. Like that really hit me. I was like, what? Like
Mhm.
that's something I could totally see eventually happening, right? Like people get so caught up in just always wanting to be comfortable, they don't know how to deal with things that throw them off. So like that was, I don't know, that was just such a strong uh piece of this whole thing. There's like a lot of my favorite stories are kind of like this. Like I'm a huge like Sun Eater fan. Like one of the quotes in
Yeah.
that book is seek hardship, right? And I'm like, it's just very, I think it's very important for people to, I'm not saying that having a nice life is bad, but like we should seek opportunities to grow, right? And
Absolutely.
challenge
Yeah.
ourselves. It's important. Otherwise we have stuff like this happen.
Yeah, it's important to challenge ourselves. I think that's
Yeah.
a good message in here. Always keep yourself, challenge yourself and grow as a result.
Mhm.
Yeah, what's funny is even when he decided to when he was punching in all that information about getting that information from the computer about unicorns, um, and about the more specifically about the origin and function of the biomitter. Um, and I circled all the words, all the times it said fear
Yeah.
in that response, and it was boom, fear without fear, uh, you know, the controlling the behavior of fear and stuff like that. And then when he but oddly enough, when he takes all the books from the library, all the books about the unicorns, um, he then says to himself, these books would tell him what to do. So even at this point, he's still looking for something to tell him what to do. And I don't think it's till the very end when he meets the little girl that he's finally free of that need.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. And even it felt like it was a very gradual process of him sort of learning that, like you mentioned earlier, some of the funny aspects of it, like when he got in the car and just went a few doors down just because, or to get away from the hospital, right? But like there were some instances like that where it was just like him trying to do something. It's almost like he had to prove to himself that he could do it,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so all that in a short little 20 pages.
I'm amazed at how much was in these. I was like, oh, 20 pages. Like this will be, this will be very straightforward. You just can't do that much in 20 pages. But once again, Donaldson proves me wrong.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Vash, you got anything else for us?
Sorry, I had to find the mute button. No, I think you guys covered quite a bit. Yeah. Oh, it's a good story. It reminded me a little bit. I'm reading Witches Abroad by Terry Pratchett, and there's a little thing that someone says about someone who's trying to make a magical kingdom and a happy and peaceful place. And she says, and when people do that, look out for spies on every corner, and no man dare speak out, for who dare speak out against evil done in the name of happiness and peace. Everything misspelled, of course, because a witch wrote this. But yeah, it reminded me of that. The perfectly safe, perfectly sanity, the constant reiteration of that statement. But yeah, it's nice to make all these connections too. Yeah, I enjoyed the story, and it was. I was amused also that when he did the search for something with a horn and hooves, it spat out unicorn before it even considered rhinoceros. Okay. But,
Or yeah. Or Satan, maybe.
Wait, he is a fantasy author. Come on, it comes up higher in his search history than rhinoceros. Come on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, rhinoceros. It's the unicorn of Africa, right?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Cool. All right. So, any last thoughts before we sign off for this story?
No, good story.
on to the next one.
Yeah.
Which I think starts with the sentence, the man wasn't very sensible, or something along those lines.
Oh no, I am a sensible man. It's not about me.
Sure,
See,
Chris.
there's your lesson in perception right there, right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, join us next month. We will be covering the next story in this collection, The Daughter of Regals and Other Tales. It is called The Lady in White, and this one's a short 30 pages, so a little bit longer. But so that'll be another, hopefully another joyful read. I really had a good time with this one, and it, like Chris said earlier, it went by really quickly, even though it still had those deep themes running through it. So thank you all for joining me today, and I'll have links to everybody's channel down below. And with all that said, as I always say, be good to each other, and bye now.